I'll bring in new insights and information that is, it's kind of taken place over the last year. But what I really want to make sure that we do is that we review these key areas of metabolism so that you can figure out where the natural products end up filling in for an integrative care environment. And in our practice, I mean, we really do. We have a lot of different things at our disposal. But I would say increasingly what we're trying to do is get people to understand that even our internal medicine docs that, don't bring out the elephant gun to shoot the fly off the wall. Let's try with a more gentle and more rational approach to straightening out people's chemistries. And, it's amazing, but more and more docs are saying, yeah, that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. So anyway. 9 keys to optimal health, the metabolic code. Why the metabolic code? Well, you got to find a title to something to try to get people to say, well, gee, that sounds catchy. The reality is that in my practice, what I find out most of the time is that the majority of people have these very basic things that are going wrong. And if you can begin to help them master these key areas of metabolic dysregulation, can really get them to feel better and get well. And not only can you get them to feel better and get well, but what you do is you really add to that equation for improving their chances of longevity. Because that's really what it is about. It's about how am I going to feel better and live longer, not just living longer. I want to feel great, vibrant. Now, I had a guy come in. It was funny. He came in and he's 90 years old this year, and I've been seeing him now for 20 years. And he came in and he said, shot an 88 on the course, 2 days ago. I went, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, and I walked the course. I said, that's nothing. I shot a 54 on the course 2 days ago. This really happened. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah, I was the front 9, but I did shoot a 54 on the course. But, and he was the model. At 70, he was kind of a broken down guy. He'd been a national sales rep in the time when the 3-martini lunch and the cigar was the way that sales reps did their calls. Oh, yeah, that's right. You guys don't do that now. It's wheatgrass, and you probably give somebody a spelt stick or something. Who knows? But the reality is this. He was broken down at age 70. And, what we think is that we can't rejuvenate folks when they're 70 or when they're 60 or when they're 50 or now when they're 40 or 30 or even in their 20s. People are starting to feel that they're on that downward slide. That can be achieved through really applying clinical nutrition and looking at individuals and begin to systematically tear apart their chemistry. So, one of the most important things I think that you never can get by are things that people hear every day. For example, cancer just became our #1 killer. That actually surpassed cardiovascular disease. January of this year. 900,000 deaths behind cancer. What do oncologists say about cancer? 80% of cancers are due to environmental load and toxicity. Well, okay, so what do we do about that? Do we wait until it's there's a lesion? Or can we evaluate that and enhance detoxification? Obesity causing free radical activity and increasing free radical damage. We know that when people are overweight, especially when they get visceral fat, that visceral fat causes excessive free radical damage, excessive inflammatory chemistry, releasing of hormones, all types of things come out of your visceral fat. And if you don't get it under control, it can be problems. Stress and obesity linked. Stress, sleep, and obesity linked. Stress, sleep problems, and diabetes linked. And in fact, I don't have a slide on this, but I don't have it in this particular presentation. But if you're overweight, this is out of the NHANES data. You're familiar with the NHANES data, government data on nutrition surveys? They went back and mined the NHANES data. And what they saw was that if you slept 5 hours a night, you were 73% more likely to become obese than if you slept 7 to 9 hours a night. And then that data was conferred by Stanford University study just released at the first part of this year that showed that they deprived 1,000 people of sleep. Took them down to 5 hours a night or less. And what they showed was that their leptin levels dropped, which is kind of their hormone that gets secreted to kind of help their appetite. Their ghrelin levels went up. Their BMI went up in 90 days of actually being deprived of sleep. Their BMI went up 3.6%, regardless of exercise and diet. What's the conclusion to that? Because we're going to get to talking about the adrenal glands and stress and hyperadaptation. When you're under stress, it causes hyperarousal of your hypothalamic and pituitary axis. And when you do that, you can't get to sleep at night. And when you can't get to sleep at night, you're not going to have a restorative cycle. Your growth hormone levels go down. You become more prone for inflammatory cytokine release. So all this information, last year I gave you guys a talk about these 9 keys. In the last year, I've probably collected another 600 articles tying together these aspects of stress and sleep and thyroid and intoxication and intestinal health and metabolism of things like your neurotransmitters and your hormones is to being that key piece of information that allows people to unwind their chemistry. So all these things keep coming out. Quality of carbohydrates eaten may affect heart disease. I mean, that means if you're gonna eat carbs, just get the absolute best carrot cake you can, right? 2/3 of the adult population are overweight or obese. I mean, this is really alarming stuff. I know you guys have probably seen this slide from me before, but it is so important that you grasp the magnitude of this slide. First of all, I mean, there may be a few moose or elk in that Montana there that's not turned yellow yet. Because there's not that many people in Montana. When you look at that left half of the country, a lot of those aren't populated states. When you look at this slide, you're seeing 15 to 19% of the population being obese, and then 20 to 25% being obese, or over 25% being obese in the red. That's a big number, and here's the problem with it. Our children already have all the significant markers of metabolic syndrome, so they have elevated fibrinogen, elevated LDLs, lowered HDLs, higher TNF-alpha. These are 9-year-olds with the clinical picture of an adult metabolic syndrome 50-year-old. I mean, this topic of nutrition and the importance of it, I cannot emphasize to you enough. I used to see, how often would you see a child that was heavy 20 years ago? Or just go back to when we were kids and we're going to school. And now you look at it and you see, regardless of what it is, if we want to sit there and go, well, it's their diet, it's this, it's that, bottom line is, you know how they're going to be managed? Their first-line treatment is going to be very aggressive drug therapy if we can't intervene with nutrition and help them get their metabolism under control.